Hey, Gillen here from the brokerage. In today's video, we're going to be teaching you how you can sell life insurance to clients that are even 65 and up.
Thank you, Gillen, for that introduction. So excited to be here with y'all today. I saw people were calling in from all over, so that's really exciting. Again, my name is Joel Flores. I work in the life department here at the Brokerage Inc. I've been with the company coming up on 6 years in June. So yeah, it's been a wild yet fun ride. And I'm excited to talk to you today about selling life insurance to your senior clients. So those clients are age 65 and up. Moving on, we're going to cover a couple of different things today. We're going to talk about the why of selling life insurance. We're going to talk about how you can have that conversation, how you can find the right product, how you can submit business, and if we have time for at the end, we're going to talk about overcoming sales objections. All right, so with no further ado, we're just going to go ahead and dive in. So why should you bother? Why should you bother trying to incorporate life insurance to your portfolio? That's a great question. And I think I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time on this today because y'all are here today because you're obviously interested. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there's a couple of key factors here. Let's talk about it. Commission, right? We're trying to be successful life insurance or successful insurance agents, right? And by adding life insurance to your portfolio, you can increase your commission greatly. So if you take what you're making off of, a Medicare Advantage sale, say that's your primary line of business, and then you go in and you start cross-selling final expense or other types of life insurance, you're going to add a significant amount to your just annual income. The commission is a little bit different on the life insurance side. So it's going to be a percentage of whatever your client's paying in premium. And that commission percentage can vary by carrier and by product. So we won't get too far in the details here, but we see for like the average final expense commission, it's to the tune of around $700 annually, right? So you'll get paid $700 for that, final expense sale that you make. So you couple that with your Medicare Advantage sale, and now you're looking at really increasing your income quite substantially. Another great feature about this is that you already have this working relationship with these clients, right? If they're a previous Medicare Advantage client or Medicare Supplement client, you've already built that relationship. Now you just need to address some of the other areas of need and provide a service that you weren't yet providing, okay? Second point here is don't be just the Medicare person. You want to be a comprehensive insurance agent, making sure that you provide solutions for all of your clients' needs. Their health insurance needs have been taken care of by you. You've done a great job providing that, but we want to look at other areas that they may need. And I hate to break it to you, I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone. We probably all need life insurance. I think it's no surprise that we're all going to, eventually pass on, and we want to have a plan for that. So putting together a nice comprehensive solution, including life insurance, can be very beneficial to you. You want to be their go-to insurance agent, not just their Medicare agent. And we talked about the comprehensive coverage. Now, the next thing I want to show you, I want everyone chime in, chat, raise your hand. If you've heard of the website GoFundMe. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of people have heard of GoFundMe, right? You see it all the time on Facebook, on social media. Let me show you something here. This is a screenshot that I took this morning. Now, one of the major categories for GoFundMe, and if you guys don't know what GoFundMe is, let me elaborate a little bit. It's a crowdsourced fundraising tool. So you can post a campaign on GoFundMe saying, I need help raising money for this cause. And a lot of people are using GoFundMe to raise money for funeral expenses. That's a big thing. You can see here down here, over 125,000 memorial fundraisers per year. Okay. And over $330 million plus raised per year for funeral expenses. So what this is telling me is that there are families, and maybe some of these are your clients, who don't have a plan in place to cover their funeral expenses. And so when they pass on, they leave that burden, that responsibility to their family, their surviving family. And maybe those surviving family don't have the funds or a plan to take care of those funeral expenses. And it's a shame. I think that by incorporating life insurance into your portfolio, you can plan ahead with the client and say, hey, I want to make sure that you and your family have a plan in place to pay for these funeral costs. I don't want your family to have to rely on GoFundMe to pay for these funeral costs. I can guarantee you that no one going on GoFundMe is happy to be doing so. It's because they have to do so, right? They want to make sure that they have a nice, proper memorial for their family member who just passed, but they don't have a way to pay for it. So that's where they turn to GoFundMe or other crowdsourcing opportunities. You can take care of that. You can provide that peace of mind with life insurance by incorporating that into your portfolio. Okay. And I don't recommend going on GoFundMe and looking at all the different funeral or memorial fundraisers. It's pretty emotionally draining, but there are a ton out there. So I know that there is a need. Okay, before we dive in, I just want to cover a couple quick definitions here. This might be really helpful for some of our newer to life insurance agents. When I talk about death benefit, when I say the words face amount, or when I say the amount of coverage, those things are all synonymous in my book. So this is the amount of money that will be paid out when your client passes away if they have a life insurance policy. So throughout this presentation, I'll say death benefit, I'll say face amount, I'll say amount of coverage. I'm referring to the same thing with all three of those terms. And you'll see those throughout literature and throughout the applications. They're all synonymous. The next thing I want to talk about is underwriting. And this is the process of a carrier determining if your client qualifies for a policy, right? So when you submit an application, the carrier oftentimes will look at your client's health situation and see if they're going to be a good candidate for life insurance with that particular carrier. That process is called underwriting. There's a lot more nuance and details there we'll cover later. Now, here's where it kind of gets a little bit different from Medicare Advantage. Your primary insured is the client whose death will result in a claim, right? So if you're selling a life insurance policy to me, I'm the primary insured. When I pass on, a death benefit will be paid to someone. And that someone is called a beneficiary. So I know it's a little bit different in the Medicare space, but the beneficiary is someone else that's not your client, right? Typically a spouse or a child, but someone in the immediate family who will receive that death benefit when the client does pass away. The first thing, and I was actually kind of racking my brain when I was putting together this presentation. I could jump into product. And I think many of you probably are expecting me to jump into product, and we will touch on that later in the presentation. But I prefer to talk about how to have that conversation, okay, first. And the reason for that is when it comes to it, your client is looking to you to provide a solution for their problem. And that solution is life insurance. And now there's different types of life insurance products that you can use, and we'll touch on that later. But to your client, really, what they're needing is a good personalized solution for them in the form of life insurance. Do they need to know all of the nitty-gritty details going on under the hood? Maybe not. Maybe if your more curious clients will be asking all of those in-depth questions. But at the end of the day, most of your clients are really just going to be knowing, I have a life insurance policy that I know what to expect from, that I know will provide peace of mind. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to have the conversation first, and then we'll dive into some of the nitty-gritty product details a little bit later. Okay, so a couple different aspects of having the conversation. We'll just go ahead and dive in. Let's dive in here. Okay, big part of this is reaching out to your client. You need to make sure that your client knows that you do offer life insurance, right? You're not just that Medicare agent, but you have other products in your portfolio that you can help. The easiest and probably the best way, I would say, to let your clients know is to incorporate that information into your follow-up calls that you're doing with your current Medicare Advantage clients or Medicare Supplement clients or your current clients in any product line, right? So you're following up. And then at the end, you're also saying, by the way, I offer X, Y, and Z. All right. If you do a lot of email campaigns, that's also another great avenue to let your clients know. But here I just introduced a call example, right, that you're having with the client, and you're actually following up on a previous product that you've worked with them on. So in this example, I'm going to paraphrase through this. I'm reaching out to a client saying, hey, I know I helped you with your Medicare plan. It's been a little while. I just wanted to touch base that the Medicare plan is working for you. See if you've gotten a chance to use it, go to the doctor, maybe use some of those extra benefits like silver sneakers or whatever may be incorporated into the plan. And then you transition. Hey, while I have you, I just want to make sure that my records are up to date, and then see if there's any gaps in coverage. You could say it like that, or you could just say, I want to update my records. Are you still at the current address? Is this still the best phone number for you? Any prescription changes that we should be aware of? Also, I just want to make sure that my clients have, comprehensive coverage. So do you have dental and vision hearing if that's not available in their Medicare Advantage plan? Do you have long-term care insurance? Do you have life insurance, right? And you're just filling out a form on your end, whatever form you want to use. Sometimes it's an Excel spreadsheet, sometimes it's a CRM software, but you're just filling out these details. Now, pay special or close attention to that. Do you have life insurance question? If they say no, that gives you a great opportunity to segue into having that life insurance talk. So for example, hey, I noticed you didn't have any life insurance coverage. I just wanted to let you know that that's something that I help my clients with. And actually, a lot of my clients are reaching out to me about it. And I've done a number of presentations about it. So I just wanted to see if that would be a beneficial talk that we can have. I want to make sure that your solutions are covered, or that we can provide peace of mind for you and your family. Okay. And so from there, you can lead to, hey, if you prefer to meet in person, you can say, I'm going to be in your area next Tuesday afternoon. Can I drop off some information, just review what options are available with you? Or if you prefer to just dive into it on that phone call while you already have them, feel free to do so. Really, this is up to you and your personal preference, but really what you're trying to say is, hey, I have a reason for my call. It's to follow up about that previous line of insurance that we worked on. Secondly, I want to make sure that I have up-to-date information. Oh, you don't have life insurance? I help with that as well. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Okay. So however you choose to structure that conversation, I don't recommend you reading this verbatim because obviously not everyone speaks the same and you don't want to come across as a robot reading a script, but tailor this. I just want to give you an example of what that looks like and what it could look like for you. Okay. So this is an example if your client doesn't have life insurance. And then what if your client says they do have life insurance? Well, that's good. Doesn't mean that there's no opportunity for a sale. It just means you have to change your conversation a little bit. Hey, you mentioned that you have life insurance. I'm really relieved to hear that. And I'm glad you took that initiative to protect your family. Quick question, what carrier is that with and what amount? I just want to make sure I have my records up to date. And then say, do you know if that's a whole life policy? Is that term insurance? Are you aware of the details there? Actually, I also do policy reviews. So I help my clients looking at their existing coverage just to make sure that they have what they think they have and they're all set. And if we're all set, you can rest assured that you have good comprehensive coverage. And if not, we can look at alternatives. So just saying, hey, I offer policy review as an additional service that you're providing can go a long way. What we've seen a lot is that clients will think that they have permanent insurance, but they really have a term policy, or maybe they only have an accidental death policy, which isn't actually life insurance. So that allows you to go in and make sure that your client has what they think they have. And if they don't have what they think they have, you can provide a better solution for them, okay? So if your client says, I already have life insurance, that's not the end of the world here. Make sure that they have what they have, or they think they have. And if they actually do have a great life insurance policy, we'll say, well, you know what? I'm glad that we got that confirmed for you today. If you have any other questions, let me know. If anyone else is needing life insurance, I'm available to help them as well. Okay. So it's all about adding that additional service there. Okay. Okay. Now transitioning into having that actual life insurance talk, right? One way to do this is just to start off by explaining benefits and explaining what permanent life insurance is and is not, okay? So here's a sample script here. I think it's important that all of my clients understand how permanent life insurance policies work. Now, these policies will never expire as long as you pay your premiums. And unlike term life insurance, which you may outlive, this product is really meant to stay with you for your entire life. This is the policy that's going to stick with you. Now, your premiums are also guaranteed never to increase. So you don't have to worry about getting a letter from the carrier asking you to pay more. So what you're telling your client here, again, we're not going into really nitty-gritty product details, but what we're really doing is reassuring the clients that with this life insurance that you're offering them, It's going to be permanent. It's going to stick with them. The premiums are going to stay the same, so they don't have to worry about any crazy surprises down the road. And it's going to be there for them when they actually need it, when their family needs it. Okay. So you're just reassuring the client with some of these benefits. Okay. We'll go into a little bit more of like individualized benefits when we get to the product section, but this is just a nice little overview that you can start the conversation with your client so that they know what they're getting and what they're getting into. Okay. If you want to go ahead and kind of elaborate on some of those benefits, talk about what the purpose of life insurance is at the end of the day, right? We've talked about it briefly earlier, but it's about providing that peace of mind, right? Most important thing is that your family has protection. So when the time comes, the burden of paying for the final expenses doesn't fall onto your loved ones. When you pass, there's going to be 1,000 decisions that they're going to have to make. And you don't want to have them worry about how to afford the service to be one of those decisions, right? You want to be able to provide this life insurance policy that will pay out a check to your family, and they can use that money to pay for the funeral expenses. Let them have the time and opportunity to grieve and not have to worry about all of the financial details. You can provide that to your family with a life insurance policy. Okay. If you want to insert a personal anecdote about how life insurance has impacted you, or not having life insurance has impacted you or your family, feel free to do so. Okay. And then you can leave, hey, fortunately, I work with a different life insurance companies, so we can find an affordable option that fits your needs and your specific situation, right? Okay. Now, moving on in that conversation, right? Again, this is kind of going seamlessly. You're just going in, allowing them to ask questions if they may need it. One of the biggest questions is, well, I don't know if I can qualify for life insurance because of my health, right? That's always a big one. And so what you can do is answer that question pretty quickly and say, you know what, we have a lot of different life insurance carriers that work with clients of all different health backgrounds and health situations. So we can find out which is a good fit for you, but we just need to collect a little bit more information. And so what you can do is asking some pre-screening health questions. And this is ahead of you taking the application. We haven't even gotten to that point yet. We haven't even pulled up a quote yet. Really, we're trying to pre-screen so that we can make sure that we can find a product that fits their health situation and their health background. Okay. So you can say, yeah, that's a great point. Fortunately, I work with quite a few different carriers, and some carriers that don't even ask any health questions. So I want to see what we can do to get the best premium for you and get you the best product, right? So in order for me to do that, I just need to ask you some health questions. If you have your prescriptions handy, I would love to take a look at those as well. That'll give me a little bit more insight to determining which is the best product for you. Now, when you're pre-screening, it's helpful to have some guidance, right? What health questions do you ask? And that's where some of these life insurance applications can be really beneficial because they'll have some point blank medical questions on there, right? So here's an example of some of those medical questions that you're going to find on like a final expense act. So it says, is the proposed insured, remember that's your client, currently bedridden? Are they requiring assistance to get in and out of with activities of daily living, like taking medications, getting dressed? Have they been diagnosed with diabetes, insulin shock, HIV/AIDS, Alzheimer's, dementia? So you can actually just use a life insurance application as your guide to determining your client's health situation. You're not presenting the application, you're not filling it out just yet, but you're using it as a guide to help you determine which would be a good fit. I often recommend just pulling out an app, not having them fill it out, but you're just going along asking, checking yes or no. And this will give you really good insight to what kind of products they can qualify for. Okay. Now, we get this question a lot. I'm going to go back here because that's a little busy. About specific underwriting concerns, right? So specific health concerns like diabetes. That's a big one. A lot of people have diabetes. I'm just going to throw this out now because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about it or wondering this. Diabetes in and of itself is not a disqualifier for life insurance. Okay. If your client has diabetes, it's insurable. If they have complications from diabetes, say like an amputation or kidney damage or insulin shock or diabetic coma, that's a big deal. That's probably going to, need you to go to a certain type of product for that specifically. But if your client just has well-controlled diabetes, it's not that big of a deal when it comes to life insurance, fortunately. Okay. So at this point, we've brought up life insurance. Your client's at least interested in it. They don't have it yet. They would like to hear a little bit more. You've asked some pre-screening health questions to determine what kind of, shape they're in. Okay. Next thing you want to do is to determine your client's budget. All right. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. Okay. So I like to lead off by saying, hey, it's important to me that I find something that fits your budget. I don't want you to be paying an arm and a leg for this, because what's going to happen is you're going to pay for a couple of months, and as soon as it becomes inconvenient, you're going to drop the policy. And I've really done nothing to help you with this situation. I've done nothing to solve your problem here. So it's really important for me that I find something that fits your budget. Now, what this tells the client is that you're really looking out for what's in their best interest, right? You're not looking out to make the big commission. You're really looking out to make sure that they have a product that fits their lifestyle, that they will actually keep, okay? Because a life insurance policy that they don't keep and enforce does no one any good. All right. So that helps build trust with the clients. I know, he's on my side. He's willing to help me find a good option for me. He's not just money hungry. Okay. So there's a couple different ways that you can ask for your client's budget. One of them is simply, what would you feel comfortable paying monthly? Or how much would you like to spend on your life insurance? It's probably, the most convenient option, but I really don't recommend it. Oftentimes the pushback you'll get here is, well, how much does it cost? Or I don't really know. Can you just show me some different options? That really hasn't gotten you any closer to narrowing down the list of available options, right? You really want to have a set number in mind. So when you go and start running quotes, you can eliminate the products or the face amounts or the death benefits that are way out of their budget, right? You want to be able to kind of pinpoint at least a range of numbers. So another alternative to this is say, hey, when I'm talking to most of my clients, they're putting about an average of $100 a month into these plans. Does that seem reasonable to you? And if they say, yeah, I can afford that. Well, okay, cool. Now we have a line in the sand. We have $100. We can start there, see how much coverage they can get for that amount. If they say, yeah, I don't think I can do that. That's a little much. Hey, that's totally fine. We can find less expensive options or maybe lower the amount of coverage that you get. But I just want to make sure that we find something that fits your budget. So if 100 is too much, what about 75 or what about 50? And finally come down to something that they feel comfortable with, right? We're trying to find a line in the sand to base, to narrow down our options, okay? Another way of doing this is saying the carriers recommend putting no more than 4 to 7% of your monthly income into your life insurance policy. So if your income is X amount, let's do 5% of that. And that could be how much you're willing to set aside for your life insurance coverage. And that, again, will give you a line in the sand. I'll give you at least a reference point to start off with, okay? So to kind of recap what we've done so far, reached out to the client, followed up on previous insurance. We've talked about the need of life insurance. We've explained a bit of the benefits. We've pre-screened for your client's health. And then we've also gotten a rough estimate of the client's budget, okay? And this typically can all happen within the space of 15 minutes. It's not a long all-day affair that you're sitting in front of the client or on the phone with them. It can really get handled within about 15 minutes, okay? So once you have those details, you're in a very good position to go out and look at different available options, okay? So now we need to find the right product. If you're just starting out, here's how I would approach this. So we had that introduction call where we just went through all of the different questions that we just talked about. And what I would say to the client is, okay, thank you for providing that information. what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the office. I have a ton of different options available, a lot of different carriers. I'm going to narrow down the options that seem like a really good fit for you based off of your health and your budget. Okay. And then I'm going to follow up with you in 2 days or tomorrow or later this evening or next week or whatever you want to do, however you want to frame it, so that we can go over the different options that are available for you and I think would be a good fit for your situation. Okay. So what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I'm going to come back to you a little bit later, but I'm going to give myself some time to run some quotes, look at some underwriting guides, contact the friendly life department at the brokerage inc to pick their brain and see what would be a good fit. And then once you narrow down your list of options, then you can get back in front of the client and talk about those. Okay. When you're just starting off, it can seem overwhelming. We just need you to get the client interested, collect that information, then you can get with us and then we can work on getting quotes with you, working on that together. And by that, I mean like me, Joel at the Brokerage Inc. or anyone else in our life department can help you with that, okay? So now we're on to the step where we need to find the right product. This is where we're gonna get into the nitty gritty product details. So strap in, we're gonna move through this a little bit quickly. If you have questions, again, dump those into the chat or the Q&A, and then we'll answer those at the end. And just to remind you, for the people that joined a little bit late, in the follow-up email, I will be sending out a personalized link to my calendar specifically. So if you have any questions or you want to have a little one-on-one session, you can go on there and see what times fit your schedule, and then we can book those, okay? All right. So we've had that introduction call. Now we need to find a product. We're going to talk about the two main types of life insurance product that fit senior clients specifically, okay? The first one is final expense. We've all heard about it. Your clients have definitely heard about it. They may have not heard the term final expense, but that's what comes on all like the Colonial Penn commercials on daytime television. So these things are just small whole life policies. The name final expense kind of throws this off. You throw some agents off and throw some clients off, but I just want you to repeat after me to yourself if you want. Final expense is small whole life policies. Okay, that's all it is. All right, nothing crazy. They're just small whole life policies. Okay. Great features of these final expense policies is that your premiums will never increase and the coverage will last until age 100 or age 121, depending on the carrier. If your client gets to 100 or God forbid 121, what happens is the carrier will just send the check and say, hey, congratulations on living so long. Here's a check for the amount of coverage that you purchased, okay? Final expense is marketed specifically for seniors, okay? It's aimed at the senior market, the 65 plus market. And it's done so in a number of ways. If you look at the marketing material, you're going to see older clients on there. You're not going to see a lot of young 20, 30 somethings on final expense brochures. It's really going to be older clients there. Their underwriting criteria, again, this is how a carrier determines if your client can qualify for coverage, is typically more relaxed because they understand that as you get older, you pick up a health diagnosis along the way, or a couple, or maybe 10, right? So that the underwriting is a little bit more relaxed. The process of applying is a little bit simpler because I want to make sure it's quick and easy for these clients. And given that they're smaller policies, that's beneficial, right? Now, when I say small whole life policies, what does small mean? Right? So the range of final expense face amounts or death benefits is from $1,000 at the very, very low end to up to $50,000 for some carriers, right? What we see is that the average final expense policy that comes through our doors is right around $12,000. It averages out to $12,000, which is right in line with covering a funeral and, the service and all of that good stuff, right? So it's really meant to be just small whole life insurance, okay? What if your client needs more than that? We'll get into that in a second, okay? Spoiler alert. So at the Brokerage Inc., we have two categories for final expense, okay? So we got final expense, and then we split it up into two distinct categories here. We have simplified issue and we have guaranteed issue. Okay. Guaranteed issue is the easy one, right? No medical underwriting, no health questions. If your client can sign the application and pay the premiums, they're going to get covered. Okay. Great to have in your back pocket, but there's a couple of downsides. Okay. We'll get into that in a second. On the other hand, we have simplified issue. So this is going to have some health underwriting, not a ton of it, but it's going to have some health underwriting. So it's going to, your client has to be able to qualify for it based off of their health. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this is aimed at the senior market. So the underwriting isn't super invasive or super strict. You'd be quite surprised by the things that can qualify for simplified issue. But just keep in mind, it's going to be for your clients who are in, I would say, average or better health. Okay. So again, simplified issue, average or better health, guaranteed issue, clients in really failing health that wouldn't be able to qualify for a simplified issue. Simplified issues are going to be less expensive than guaranteed issues all day, every day. So keep that in mind. And then next, this gets a little bit more confusing, so bear with me here. You have two types of death benefits. Okay. You have a level and you have graded. Okay. Level, when you hear the term or read the term level death benefit, that just means immediate coverage. So if I had a final expense policy today, it went in force today, and then I died a month from now, it would pay out that full benefit amount to my family. Okay. So just to reiterate, if I had a level death benefit on my final expense policy and I purchased $10,000, if it went in force today and I died a month from now, 2 weeks from now, a year from now, it would pay out that full $10,000 to my family. Okay. That's a level benefit. Alternatively, you have a graded benefit. A graded benefit is like a waiting period. Think of it as a waiting period on the death benefit. So if I had a graded death benefit of $10,000, if I purchased that today, if I died any time within the next 2 years, the carrier wouldn't pay out that full $10,000. Rather, they'd pay out all of my premiums that I paid thus far plus 10%. So it's like a return of premium plus 10%. That's what would be sent to my family upon my death. Okay. After that 2-year mark, then it would pay out that full $10,000. Okay. So I put together a little chart that I think might be helpful. Okay. And just to also kind of recap here, or just as an aside, we actually do have a very short 7-minute final expense 101 video that I'll send out in the follow-up that goes over this a little bit more in depth. And as always, feel free to reach out to me with questions or schedule that one-on-one time with me, okay? So simplified issue and guaranteed issue, right? Those are the two main categories of final expense. Simplified issue, you're gonna have, for your clients who are in decent or better health, they're going to have access to that level immediate day one coverage. But the simplified issue carriers may also still want your clients who are not great health, but not uninsurable, right? So they may offer them a graded benefit, okay? Whereas with a guaranteed issue, it's always going to be a graded benefit no matter what. There is no level benefit guaranteed issue, okay? So how do you know what your client can qualify for? That's where you look at those pre-screening questions that you had asked them using one of the final expense applications as your guide. And that will give you good insight to what your client is likely to qualify for. Okay. So if you're looking at it, you're asking some of those initial questions and you're like, oh, you were diagnosed with cancer 6 months ago. You're not going to be able to qualify for that simplified issue. But I do have another option with one of my guaranteed issue carriers that they're not going to ask any medical questions on the application. They accept everyone. There is this caveat of a waiting period on the death benefit, but at least you do have some coverage in place. And I'd rather you have some coverage than no coverage. Okay. So you as an agent are going to try your best to get your client into a simplified issue and preferably a level benefit. But if that's not the case, then you can look at some of these other options here. Okay. One last thing I want to say here before we move on to the different types of life insurance that are also available in addition to final expense. Not all carriers have, most carriers are very similar in the types of medical questions that they ask, but some carriers have a couple of unique niches. Like, for example, one of our carriers, Aetna, they have a great final expense plan. They don't ask height and weight, which could be a knockout for some of our other simplified issue carriers. So if you have a client with a build issue, you could get them a level benefit, whereas other carriers would not allow for that, right? Or, history of stroke is a strength for Aetna. So you could consider them if you have clients with that type of background. Okay, so keep that in mind. As the agent, you're trying your best to put people in a level benefit, but there are other fallback plans in your back pocket if you need them. Okay. If you have any questions specifically about your portfolio and which carriers you should add, reach out to me and we can see who you currently have and see who would be a good fit for you and your market. Okay. All right. So that was final expense. We're still good on time. I'm glad. Okay. Now we're going to go on to other type of life insurance, right? So remember, what did we say about final expense? Those were small whole life policies. With other types of permanent life insurance, you get a lot more flexibility, but it comes at a cost, right? Not a financial cost, but at an underwriting cost. Okay. So at the Brokerage Inc., we have other carriers that we consider traditional life insurance carriers, right? When I say traditional, I just mean not final expense. Okay. So we have whole life options and then universal life options. The difference between the two really is they're both meant to be permanent insurance. There's some subtle nuances here, but really just consider both of these permanent insurance. Okay. For these traditional policies, they're typically going to have higher face amounts. So starting at 25,000 and going up to as high as you could possibly think of, right? So if you have a $25,000 case, this might be a good fit. If you have a $2 million case, this would definitely be a good fit, right? So keep that in mind. If your client's budget allows for it, or if their insurance needs require them to get more coverage than say 25,000, this would be a very good alternative for your client rather than just trying to place them in a final expense policy. Okay. These require more underwriting. Typically, your client's going to have to do one of those medical exams. We call them paramed exams, and that's where they meet with an examiner who's sent by the life insurance carrier to do height, weight, check their blood, check their urine, all that fun stuff, right? Not great, not incredibly quick. Clients feel it's a little invasive, but it gives them opportunity to get those higher face amounts. Okay. Also, some of these permanent life insurance policies, these traditional carriers, will offer chronic illness or long-term care riders on top of the death benefit, right? So if your client is concerned about long-term care or not having money to pay for them needing home health care or needing to go into a facility, they could look at some of these permanent life insurance options and have some chronic illness protection built into their coverage, right? Or added on as additional premium, okay? So with traditional permanent life insurance, you get a whole lot more bells and whistles if your client chooses to it. You get access to higher face amounts. You just have to do a little bit more underwriting to qualify for it, okay? One thing about these traditional permanent life insurance, they will always have a level benefit, always that day one coverage. Final expense is unique in that could potentially have a greater benefit, but for these traditional permanent life insurance products, it's always going to have a level death benefit, always, at least through the carriers that we work with at the Brokerage Inc. Okay. And then what about term? Yeah, I haven't talked about term at all really today. And the reason for that is I don't find that it's the best fit for most of your senior clients. Okay. There's a very real possibility that your client can outlive the term. And if they're a 65-year-old client and you sell them a 10-year term, gets them to age 75, once they're age 75, and their term expires, what do they do then? Do they still have a life insurance need? probably, and now they're 10 years older, maybe picked up a health diagnosis or two, and now their coverage is going to be a lot more expensive. Okay. So I very rarely recommend term for your senior clients. Term is not as expensive as permanent life insurance. But that being said, if your client outlives it, they're not in a great situation. That being said, if your client has a very specific use case where they just purchased a house and they have a mortgage, right, that they're still trying to pay off, that might be a great use case for a term product. Or if they have some type of business loan or some type of debt that they're wanting to make sure that's covered for their family, then term might be a good opportunity there. But in most cases, I would really try to transition your client away to a permanent product, maybe lowering the amount of coverage that they're applying for, but really trying to get them into some type of permanent coverage, whether that's final expense, whether that's traditional, really trying to shift away from term. Okay. Typically starts at 50,000 and goes up. There's no like $10,000 term available. That's really final expense territory and not term. Okay. And again, term always will have a level benefit with the carriers that we're working with at the brokerage Inc. Okay. So we ran through some details about products. To recap, comparing final expense and traditional life insurance. Okay. On final expense, you get the pros of it being an easier underwriting process. You have options for clients in failing health, and you have access to lower face amounts, even as low as $2,000 or $1,000. Okay. On the traditional side, you do have to go through more underwriting, including a medical exam. Maybe the client needs to do, or the carrier needs to request medical records. But you do get access to higher face amounts. So for that chronic illness protection, having a higher face amount can be very beneficial. You have access to extra bells and whistles. If you have a client who is looking at beefing up their retirement supplement income, they can use higher face amount life insurance to do so if they're willing to pay that kind of premium, right? So there's definitely a lot more options on the traditional side if your client can pay the premium for that, or if they're needing that amount of coverage. So keep that in mind. We do have some really great options, especially if your client has, like an older annuity that they don't need anymore and wants to use that to fund for chronic illness protection. We can use life insurance for that. We have great opportunities for that specific use case. So it really depends on your client. If you want to have that conversation, feel free to reach out to me. We love having that talk around here. So there's a lot more cool things you can do with traditional life insurance that you might not be able to do on final expense. Okay. Now, comparing costs, okay? So when you see here, higher cost per thousand under final expense, you're paying for the convenience factor of having an easier underwriting process. And so what you're gonna see is that traditional life insurance can be less expensive than final expense, right? So for the same 25,000 for a 65-year-old female, on a final expense, simplified issue, level benefit, she'd be paying around $96 a month. And if she needed guaranteed issue, that premium goes up to $155 a month, right? Now, let's say that same client is in standard health. They're, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, but they're in good shape otherwise. And they're willing to do that medical exam. They could get a guaranteed universal life for that same $25,000 of coverage for $75. Okay, so they're saving $20 a month if they're willing to do a little bit more work. Okay. So I just want to kind of give you a quick comparison between final expense and traditional life insurance. If your brain feels like it's about to explode at this point, don't worry. When you're just getting started, there's a lot of different options out there. Really feel free to lean on us, the marketing team at the Brokerage Inc. for life insurance, and we can definitely help you navigate what works and what makes sense for your clients, okay? Okay. So how do you find out the premiums, right? It's kind of a big deal. Fortunately, we have tools on our website. In the follow-up email that we're going to send, we don't have time to do this today, but I'm going to send you some how-to demo videos on how to run a final expense quote using Simply Quote, our tool on our website. And then I'm also going to show you how to run a term and guaranteed universal life quote on our term and universal life quote engine that's also available on our website. And then if you're needing to quote traditional whole life, we use a software called WinFlex Web for that. And I'll also send a demo video for that. So if you're interested, and I think you should be, on running your quotes, you can go ahead and watch those demo videos and get some insight there. And as always, we would love to help you with quotes. So if you don't have the time or want to get some one-on-one walkthroughs, feel free to reach out to us and we can do that for you as well. All right. So to recap, getting a little short here, we've had the initial conversation with the clients, created a need, got some information to help us determine the type of product and the amount to apply for. Now we got to present our options to our client and then find out the underwriting process or determine how to submit the app, right? So I'm going to go through this. When I'm comparing options and showing them to clients, I can do a couple of different things here. I can say, we're looking at final expenses going to be a good fit for you. We can do $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000. Here are the different premiums. Which options do you think, which one do you think is the best fit for you? You can call that like your bronze, silver, and gold tier. And maybe they end up on the silver tier right in the middle. That's one way to do it. If your client's looking for $25,000 in coverage, like we said, we can compare that guaranteed universal life traditional option versus a $25,000 final expense option and say, hey, if you're willing to go through a little bit more underwriting, get poked and pee in a cup, you can go with this and save a little bit of money. If you want an easier, more streamlined application process, you can go with a final expense, but you're going to pay a little bit more for that coverage. Give them the choice and see which one they want to go with, okay? Now, take a screenshot. Don't take a screenshot. We're sending the recording. I'm going to move past this pretty quickly. But just for application process and underwriting processes, it depends on if you're doing final expense or traditional. If you're doing final expense, each carrier will have an e-app on their portal. So you would just log into that specific carrier's portal to do the e-app. Paper apps are available if you want to do that. As far as underwriting for final expense, your simplified issue is going to have those medical questions on the app, a prescription check. They're going to check the MIB, and some carriers will require a telephone interview. Not all of them, but some do. If you're doing guaranteed issue, there's really no underwriting at all. Sign the application, pay the premiums, you're good to go. Typical time frame, usually at longest, unless there's something going on in the case, about 3 business days to get these things issued, sometimes faster. Now, if you're doing a traditional life insurance option, so maybe a higher face amount, you have paper apps available. We also have the drop ticket, which is a service that's on our website where you can submit some of your client's information and the carrier will reach out to the client to take the application over the phone, or we'll send them an email link to complete it on their end. That's available free of charge on our website. So you can use that. There's paper apps. The underwriting will typically be more demanding. Is a good way to put that. So you'll have a medical exam, possible medical records. They'll do the prescription check and MIB check. Average time frame for this, especially when we're dealing with senior clients, we're looking at 4 weeks, just depending on a number of situations like your client's health and if medical records are needed. That's not a great number. We definitely see some applications get approved a lot faster than that, but we also see some get dragged on longer than that. So the average is about 4 weeks there. So while there is some premium savings on the traditional side, there is, longer process time. All right, I'm going to move past that. And you know what? I'm going to save the sales objections for maybe doing like a one-on-one meeting, maybe doing an additional webinar, because I do want to give some opportunity to check out some of the questions that are available on the chat, or that have been sent to the chat, kind of giving you just a quick overview of some of these sales objections. I don't think I'll qualify because of my health. We know how to answer that. You've already talked about guaranteed issue and those availability. I don't think I'll be able to afford this. You've already answered that question when you spent the time looking at your client's budget and getting that line in the sand. Okay. I already have a life insurance policy. We've already talked about doing the policy review, and then we can pay for our client's funeral with cash. We haven't touched on that yet. We do have some opportunities there though. I need to think about it. You're going to hear this often. Say, what do you really need to think about? Is there anything that I can kind of clear up any misconceptions that you may have? I want to talk to my children first. This is not an objection. This is an opportunity, and I will die on this hill. Say, great. I would love to have this conversation with your family because they're going to be the ones who are going to be benefiting from this policy. Let's set aside a time to talk about that. All right. Okay. Life insurance monies are paid to the beneficiary tax-free. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay. So your client's beneficiary does not have to pay income tax on the death benefit. It's tax-free. Okay. Any spreadsheet or similar to know which insurance would accept people with common illnesses or prescriptions? That's a great point. That's actually in the works. We're working on that now. So as soon as that's available, we'll send that out. The more familiar you get with these different life insurance applications, it's easier to pick on like the niches. But that's something that is needed. So thank you for bringing that up. We will get to that. Final expense equals small whole life policy. Is diabetic considered graded? Not necessarily. There's plenty of policies that will issue a level benefit to a client who has diabetes, especially if it's well controlled. No matter if it's insulin controlling it or diet or metformin or whatever, really the carrier is just going to be wanting to see that it is controlled. So if it's gotten to the point where the diabetes is not controlled enough to cause the need for an amputation, that's going to be either guaranteed issue. That's almost 100% going to be guaranteed issue, actually, which would require a graded benefit. Okay. Do you have a term that will convert to a whole life at the end of the term? Yes, we do. Most of our policies will have a conversion option on there. So keep that in mind if you're doing term, but also keep in mind that most carriers will limit that age of conversion to age 70. Okay. So if you have sell a 10-year, 15, 20-year term to a 65-year-old, they only have those first 5 years to convert more often than not. Can a client with well-managed bipolar disorder secure life insurance? Great question. And the answer is yes. So when you're looking at mental health disorders or impairments, whether it's bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, what you're really looking for is how is it controlled? Are there multiple impairments going along at the same time? Is the prescription history stable, right? Are they constantly switching medication, which is indicative of them not being able to control whatever impairment they may have? And then the big one here is inpatient hospitalization. So if they've had to go to an inpatient facility, maybe spent 48 hours in a psychiatric ward at a hospital, that's going to be a very big red flag, and that's going to be hard to overcome. They're also looking at suicide risk, which is another really important factor there. But if it's well managed, they've been on the same prescriptions for a number of years, they're able to live life, work, have family, do whatever they need to do, then that is definitely insurable. If they're impaired enough to be on disability, that might be a little bit tougher. Final expense could be an option there. Do we sign up with each carrier so we can sell their products? Yes. So if you want to offer a particular carrier's products, you will sign up with that individual carrier with the brokerage link. We don't have like a blanket life insurance contract that you can fill out. So you can really choose the particular carriers that you like, that think would be a good fit for your portfolio. And we can talk about recommendations one-on-one. How competitive are the rates for final expense compared to Colonial or other companies in California? Great question. So Colonial is not my favorite carrier. A lot of the times they'll do a bait and switch where your client will call in and then they'll tag on the graded benefit automatically to try to get lower premiums, right? That's the way they price their products. It's a little bit different than the carriers that we have. So we do have a number of carriers that are very affordable, very budget friendly, that do have a level benefit where Colonial will try to save some money on premium by having a graded benefit. Now I'm under the impression that level benefits are better than graded benefits. if you can get them. So yeah, we do have some really great premiums available through Final Expense. And even if you're looking at traditional, we have fantastic premiums. All right. Let's see. You have a prospect, Anna. That is fantastic. The answer to your question, Anna, without having to read it, is yes. Do we have a basic CRM that we can use, or a fillable form? We actually do have some great CRM recommendations. And I know that Gillen and his team have done a couple of podcasts or webinars talking about that. So we can send those resources available to you. It helps you keep track of your business. It's really very helpful. Can anyone be overweight, level or graded? Depends on how overweight. Carriers will have build guidelines, so we can check on that specifically. But if they're really overweight, go with Aetna. They don't ask height and weight. It's fantastic. Autism spectrum adults. That's a great question. I would have to look at some of the underwriting questions on their application. I don't want to give my gut answer here because it could be wrong, but let me check into that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like more content like this, remember, you can always go to thebrokerageinc.com, head over to our webinars page to find more.